Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Under Night interview series. Today I have ImpurestClub, one of my favorite people in the scene. How's it going, Im?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We are dangerously close to Under Night 2 coming out.
I
We
know. I know. I can't believe like what early access starts in how many days at this point? Like
Sunday, so about 4 or 5
yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, less than a week. That's
Uh,
wild.
I want to say it's like 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Sunday for me, or for us. We're both EST
Yeah.
actually, so. Yeah, I'm not ready, but we will have it come all the same.
They keep
So,
dropping features, I feel like. Every time I boot up Twitter, like they're just tweeting out like, "Look at this new training mode feature," which is sick. Um
absolutely.
and definitely not what I expected at all.
Speaking of that, one of the latest features that I like that they talked about was you can make it so for you, like the player, the one player, you can show whatever your stage
Mhm.
preference is, but the opposing player doesn't have to see that. And so I'm sure you know as an organizer that Park can be contentious, to say the least. Uh, it's my favorite stage in the game. I don't mind playing on it all the time, but with rollback into everything, you should have the ability to select whatever stage you'd like. So,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe as a spectator, I hope that people decide to play, or even actually as a streamer's perspective, I wonder if you can set it to random and it'll just show.
Oh yeah, kind of like in Lumina you can do random and you can like kind of prune certain stages and stuff. So I'm wondering if that's going to be the same.
I actually got to mess around with that in the beta. You can both prune the stages that show up and the music that plays on random as well.
Okay, awesome.
So that's going to be super cool. I One of the things that I'm still kind of interested in, they showed us kind of the player lobbies, but there are actually 9 slots rather than the 8 that we've been used to with like Lumina and
Hmm.
Clear. So I wonder if that ninth slot is like strictly a broadcast spot, so like a streamer or something like that can just chill in that spot while watching other players. I'm like super interested in that. They haven't talked about it yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, it is an odd change. I mean, maybe they're trying to plan ahead for some sort of like multiple games in the lobby at a time with like you're saying with a spectator spot. But it is an odd change just to bump it up to 9 without also like adding some other features, I feel like.
Yeah, because I think our understanding currently is that we cannot play multiple games concurrently. There's just
Yeah.
one slot. So it really makes me wonder what that ninth slot is for. I could be reading it wrong, but it does say that 1 to 9 players is possible.
Yeah, it does say 1 to 9. I think they'll come up with something. They seem like really gung ho to just push all of these quality of life updates into the game, which is incredible. So I wouldn't put it past them to maybe not at launch, but slide it in with one of the DLC characters down the line.
Yeah, I mean, we saw with Lumina that we essentially got 2 rounds of DLC before, and I don't think that they're done with Lumina, but before they
No.
have paused it to kind of move and work on Uni 2. So
Hmm.
I'm certainly interested to see what comes down the pipe a little later. But with that aside, we'll go into our first question here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of Uni, and maybe give us a surprising fact about yourself?
Sure. So let me think about this a little bit. I grew up kind of like splitting my time between the US and Egypt as a kid. So my family is 100% Egyptian. I would travel there a few months every year, just traveling back and forth. Um, Ended up moving to the Northeast when I got older, got into fighting games very late in life compared to most people. I feel like I felt like an old man joining the scene. Even from like day one, I saw Dragon Ball Fighters. I saw Leffen versus Goichi, and I was like, oh,
Oh,
I gotta play
awesome.
this game. I gotta play this game. It looks too sick. And I was horrible.
So
But
if you
yeah.
don't mind me asking, about when did you start? or when would you consider yourself? I'm seriously kind of getting interested in this medium.
Yeah, so I always kind of fighting games I always mashed on at arcades when I was little. Like I would just go and I would find whatever station and I would just kind of like hit buttons. But I think when I decided I actually really wanted to learn the game was around when Janemba dropped in Dragon Ball Fighters, which is how many years ago now? I don't
Was
know,
that
5
2019?
maybe?
I think.
Yeah, like around 5 years ago. And
So,
that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna get good. And that's actually how WASD kind of started, where I was like, I can't really find events. I don't know where to find them, so I'm just gonna start running events. So it started with Dragon Ball.
hmm. That's actually really interesting because you are very much in a hotbed for Dragon Ball in North America, with Bums events. But honestly speaking, I mean, you have worked in, spoiler, are going to be working hand in hand with Lunar Phase.
Yeah.
Uh, they also kind of, you know, maybe didn't feel like they could find events that they could really be catered to, and so they
Mhm.
created Lunar Phase. Like, one of the things as a TO and as a person who's created scenes for a couple different games now, if you have that kind of motivation, it's like, all right, well, it doesn't seem like people really play this game, but I really want to play with people, so you just kind of grab the bull by the horns and you start doing it yourself.
Yeah. Also, like offline didn't really occur to me until COVID hit. So I went to one local and then COVID hit. And then it was just like, okay, we're all indoors. Like, I would go to Waypoint and there were a few people there that played offline and I got some games and then they convinced me to like show up to one local. I went to one, it was a blast. And then immediately everything was
Everything
just
shut
locked
down.
down.
Oh man, that's rough.
And yeah, that's when I was like, I can't really find any online stuff. I don't know a good place. I was like checking Reddit, checking Twitter, but I wasn't finding anything, so I just decided to run it.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about the early days of WASD? I obviously came to know of you as you were as your feet had been established kind of into Under Night,
Hmm.
but I didn't know this early lore.
Yeah, so it started with Dragon Ball, I want to say for like a year or 2 years of Dragon Ball tournaments, and we would run both PlayStation and PC. They got kind of sizable. They never got huge, but I'd say we were getting like 30-ish, 30 to 40 players, which is not bad at all.
Look,
But
that is
yeah.
huge. With all due respect, 30 to 40 people, especially on the online era, like, I think that's pretty big. You see some larger tournaments, and you've certainly ran larger tournaments yourself by now. But for someone starting off, like, that's a really good size.
Yeah, it was definitely a build up to it, but it like as quickly as it kind of like grew to that size, it's like we took a small break. We're like, oh, we're gonna do seasons. We're gonna take a couple weeks off, and then nobody came back. We literally went like overnight from like an average of I'd say like 35 entries to like 10, and I think it was just like at that point I hadn't built up the track record long enough of consistency that people believed that like I would actually come back. Um, so around that time, I actually just like on a casual stream, I just booted up Under Night, and it's a game I had tried before. Like before I got into Dragon Ball or anything, I downloaded Uni, booted up. I went through the character select screen. I was like, oh, this phone on character looks kind of cool. Didn't look at the move list, didn't do anything. Hopped online, and dude, I just got wrecked.
Yeah.
I got wrecked. It was bad, but I decided to give it another chance, and I was just streaming it, and it was me, Nick slash Faded. I don't know if you've
Faded.
met him. Yeah, yeah. And then Didi was playing Yuzu at the time, and we were just mashing buttons. I think I was the only one who knew a combo. We were just playing, and we got a random raid from Triplicate.
Yo, shout out to Trip.
Yeah, and that's kind of like how we really got into Uni. It was just such a welcoming community off the bat. Like immediately people saw us like just struggling to do basic stuff, and just the applicable advice was so fast, and the pop-offs in chat from people when like we were able to apply any of it was just awesome. So we're like, let's try running a uni tournament, and the first one had 4 people. I mean, it was online clear. I didn't realize at the time, because like I really only played Dragon Ball online. I hadn't played anything with rollback. I was like, this is just how online is, right? Like everyone should be okay with it. And it wasn't until like later on when I played like rollback games and I like understood the infrastructure behind it, and I got to really play offline, right? That I understood the resistance to online. But yeah, that's pretty much how we got into uni. Just like a few casual streams with Nick and Didi, mashing buttons, just kind of rotating through the cast. And that literally, I've joked with Triplicate before, calling him like the godfather of WASD, but he kind of like sparked it. Just literally that raid, and then he would show up pretty much every day in chat and just talk about the game with us and just kind of like push us to try new characters, link us to resources, the whole 9 yards.
That's really cool. So you actually, certainly answered the second question that I was going to give you, but I actually kind of wanted to dig into that. So you mentioned that early on. I think the first tournament that you ran for Under Night was like 4 people.
Yeah.
I always kind of talk amongst my peers, or maybe some people who are outside of the scene that aren't as familiar. You and the WASD group really kind of came in, I think, as the boomers, quote unquote. We're kind of burning out. So,
yeah.
A lot of us were really excited to play clear. And there were a lot of different projects, like the Reincarnation of Division series that Redblade ran. I think we had done a couple different exhibitions with like Combo Breaker, and then Shinobi had done a project as well. This is in like 2020 or so. But I was like really fearing that we were losing momentum, because the older generation, myself included, became less and less interested in entering online events. And so there was still an underbelly of players, a lot of people who are essentially household names now, your Defiants, your Salties, your Pestos, really strong players in their own right who are trying to break into the scene. And so one of the things that I've always appreciated about WASD is that you guys really just took the torch. Like I was like really, really nervous about, are we gonna be able to keep the momentum? Like what are the newer players like really interested in? Because with all due respect, even though I've gotten to know some of the players who have really come up in the last couple of years, it's weird to call them generations of players, but like my generation of players is a little older, so I don't have as intimate as a connection with the younger generation, which is funny because you mentioned that you are older in the scene as well.
Yeah.
From a physical age perspective. So, what do you think about that? What do you feel like you've kind of taken the torch, or kind of where are you at as an organizer in that sense?
Yeah, so it's really interesting to say, because I definitely like, it is weird to say generations, but I think that's the right term for it. It does feel like there is kind of like 2 generations of players. I feel like over the last like year, especially when like offlines came back post-COVID, it started to like kind of blend together more into like one bigger like overall like just the uni community again. But I definitely do think like for a minute it was like very clear cut, like this was like the pre-COVID generation, and then like the generation that picked it up during COVID. But as an organizer, like picking up the torch, I guess that's never really been my intention at all. Like for me, when I run events, I really only run events for either games or communities that I just really, really enjoy. And I think those go like hand in hand. Like I won't run, I will never just run a game because I think it'll bring numbers, for instance. Like if I don't enjoy the game, and it could be the most popular game, like Project L could drop tomorrow, it could be the most popular game on earth, every bracket you run, like 200 people at your local. If I think the game sucks and I don't enjoy watching it, I don't enjoy playing it, 0% chance I'll run it. So it was never like with the intention of, oh, okay, people are stepping out, like I'm gonna step in. I didn't know enough about the scene to even kind of consider that, to be honest. I just knew that like I wanted to run events. I was having trouble finding them. Be that like a combination of a lot of people just weren't running online uni at all at that time period. I think for a while I was the only one.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and like I was like, I want to run these, I want to play it, and I actually, for the longest time until the brackets started to get too big, I was playing in them as well. So it was really like it came from a place of just like, I want to play this game. I want to surround myself with people who also want to play the game. So I'm just gonna keep running events, and then WASD grew bigger than I ever kind of expected. Like even the name WASD was literally a throwaway name for the Discord. I never expected it to stick. I
didn't know that. Wow. I was gonna ask you what WASD even stood for.
It was like a placeholder Discord just for like all sorts of projects I was doing, and then I started inviting people into it, and then it just kind of like the name stuck. It got too big.
I feel that. You know, what you mentioned is something that I really highly respect about you. As far as feeling like, you know, this wasn't something I wanted to pick up because I felt like something was lacking. It's like you genuinely stumbled onto uni, you made a connection with a player, and then that player kind of got you connected into the rest of the scene as you matched up with people who felt the same. One of the things that I've always found particularly important, and one of the things that I try to do, I guess I could be called an organizer, maybe from the previous generation, I don't do too much of that anymore, is matching people with people. That's always been my objective, like with Under Night. You know, I think the game is dope. I love playing the game. You know, I'm a big homer for the Midwest. I want to match people with people. I want more people to play. I want to watch more people. And so any sort of event organizing or something that I do, projects that I do, is basically to increase the awareness of, you know, sometimes myself, but really like these dope ass people who are playing this sick ass game, you know? And so I really feel like you come from that same spirit, and I respect that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think saying like matching people with people is the right way to go about it. Like I've had conversations with a ton of people, like other TOs, just how do you get people to offlines, right? Like as online gets better, it's naturally a side effect that more people are going to stay at home and just play on their PC, play on their PlayStation. It's more comfortable. They don't have to go anywhere. It's free, right? And Monta actually, I think, phrased it the best. Yeah, shout outs to Monta. He's like, you got to turn your locals into third places. They got to be the comfy place that people want to go to. They have friends there. The environment is welcoming, and they just like, it's like just a nice chill hangout spot. And I think that's especially newer people that get into the scene and they jump in online and they see the big, like, they see like TNS that gets 200 entries every single bracket, a couple thousand people watching all the time, and they're like, that's the scene, that's what I got to jump into. I feel like they kind of, to some degree, I think until they like go to a major maybe, and that encourages them to try and like find more locals and stuff, they kind of miss that like person-to-person interaction. And in my experience, like I had a lot of people who started with like the WAS like online beginner series. That was like the big thing, right? Like we ran a ton of beginner brackets, and a lot of people that got into fighting games started that. And then when COVID kind of like started winding down, we're like, oh, I'm gonna go to my first offline now because I've been playing all these online stuff, all these online brackets and everything. Let me try an offline, just because at that point, I think like some of the older players like Garmfield and Mark and stuff had been in there, and you just hear them like mention talking about offline uni. People get curious, they go out, and across the board, every single person that's gone to like their local has just loved it, and they just love going offline.
Yeah, there's a certain, I think, spirit that we have. Maybe, I mean, fighting games in general I think has this, but in Under Night there's like a really deep appreciation of being able to play the game offline. Some of it,
Hmm.
I think, of course, is the dichotomy between playing delay based and playing like quote unquote real uni offline against people. But uh, when you go to majors, regionals, things of that nature, um, the sort of culture that's been cultivated is like really, really excitable. You
Hmm.
have players that are generally really invested in how their peers are doing. You know, if people you
Oh
came
yeah.
up with, are playing in a hype set, you sit in and you watch them. Our top eights that I'm sure you've seen at majors, like there aren't too many people who don't sit in and watch those.
Oh
You have
yeah.
crowd chants, you have cheers, you have side betting, you have all of that like kind of community involvement, that third space, kind of like what you and Monta had talked about. And I think that that's addicting, especially as we're kind of in a current environment, both uh, with respect to COVID and some other socioeconomic factors,
Hmm.
where it's almost a little more separate than usual.
Yeah.
Maybe more than usual isn't the right way to say that, but that sort of camaraderie, I think, is addicting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm gonna kind of steer it back to our normal
Yeah.
questions
Sorry.
here. No, no, no. I love kind of going through the weeds like this. Uh, and honestly, we're still going to kind of be in the same ballpark. I wanted to know, as kind of a follow up of how you got into Under Night, what's the thing that kind of keeps you interested in Under Night, both as a player and maybe as an organizer?
Oh man, it's 100% the people. It's running like years of beginner events really let me like track the progress of a lot of players in the community. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm so invested in seeing how they perform that it's just like, I don't miss a uni stream. I think the only like uni top 8 I didn't sit in person was CEO Taku because I got appendicitis while I was there.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
remember seeing.
yeah, I was just like dead. I was in my room, but I was still watching it on my phone. Um, yeah, it's 100% the people. Like, I know, like one of the questions kind of touches on this, but like for me, especially like watching Defi and OmniD and Big Black just do better and better and better offline has just been
A
like
treat.
so sick to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you watch them
remember, yeah.
watch them grow in front of your eyes.
I remember Big Black winning like 40 online brackets in a row. Like I don't think that's an exaggeration. That might be understating it. Like 40 online brackets and Defi finally dethroning him. Like that moment is burned in my mind and that was just an online moment. So then to go and see them like perform offline at majors, get top 8s, win majors,
Yeah,
it's
seeing
just like,
Defiant
yeah.
like really finish the fight at Combo Breaker was amazing. And you could see how much it meant to him. You saw how much
Hmm.
work and practice. Like I don't talk too much in Defiant streams, but like I sit in.
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned that I love to do is I track progress of everybody. People like sometimes get surprised when they hear me on commentary. They're like, how did you know that this person was from Arkansas and they played blah blah blah? It's like, look, I sit in and I ask
Hmm.
people about people. Some of it is competitive. Some of it is just kind of like, I didn't know about this scene. So let me go ahead and find out about this. I know that this player plays this player, but who do they know? Like those sorts of connections are interesting to me. So I love really seeing like people grow and come into their own. Like, for example, Wish, who is the Nodasei player from Chicago.
Hmm.
I've played with Wish for a long time. Wish has continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger and
Yeah.
stronger. And seeing them like beat Renala offline at Roundhouse this year, took a set off of Renala, was like huge. I know like there was times where he couldn't even get close And to see
Hmm.
him put it together and get a set was like, this is the ascension of somebody that I've been watching for a long time.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Uh, we're going to dig in a little bit more into you as a player with this next one. Who is your main character and why did you choose them?
Wagner, and honestly, her combos when I was like learning the game just felt the most natural. I picked her up. I was able to just combo with her really quickly, and that made the game so much more fun. And then kind of over time, I came to just really like the rushdown playstyle. Uni as a whole, and this is something that kind of like harkens back to the last question. I really like the pacing of Uni overall. Like I like that I can block and I'm not like actively losing while I block, for instance. Um, but having the tools just like I feel like Wagner enables the way I want to play fighting games perfectly. More so than any character I've found in other games. And so like I've dabbled with other characters in the cast. I've like played around, but I always just end up just going back to her.
I feel that that's really the same with me and Akatsuki. I love to tell this story, and I've talked about it a couple different ways, but like way back when in EL, where I was trying to learn how to play the game, I thought that I would be playing Line or Wagner. I even tried
Mhm.
Byakuya for a little while, but I was coming from basically being a Smash player, um, and like their inputs and combos were like really difficult for me, and so I landed on Akatsuki because I played a lot of Shotos when I was mashing as a child and as a teenager. And after that, like, I went into the lab trying to do like 6E loops in EL, which were really difficult at the time.
Mhm.
Hitting people with that character felt good, and almost 9 years later, here I am playing Akatsuki, one of the best in the world. So, yeah, if it feels good, I think you got to stick with it. Um,
Yeah.
you did mention that you toyed around with a couple other characters, but do you have any like official quote unquote sub characters, or are you considering picking up any characters in Uni 2?
I don't have any subs really in clear that are like worth writing home about, to be honest. Just kind of like mashing. I guess Linnae would be like the closest thing, but definitely not enough that I would like play more than like a few casuals with her. But for Uni 2, I'm really excited about Kuan, and I think Adelheid is going to drop.
I think
I
so
I
too.
and I will 100% swap to her. I think she is going to be busted just based on lore, and I think she looks pretty cool too. But I'm definitely when Uni 2 drops, I'm going to be picking up Kuan.
Yeah, I'm not as interested in Kuon. Tsurugi is the one that I have my eye on
Oh yeah.
as far as a sub character. I got to watch Ray play a little bit. I played a set with Twang, who dug into that character pretty quickly. Got to play against him hard. It's actually super weird. A lot of Akatsuki players are also looking into Tsurugi. I
Oh,
don't
that
know.
makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense.
Does
Like,
it?
yeah, I don't know though. The overlap just the characters have the same vibe to me. Like I look at both of them, I look at how they play, and I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like I can't. There's no like rationale behind it. I just look at the vibes behind both characters, and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense to me.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's how I felt. It's like staggering up, frame traps. You kind of get to play around with a couple different things. I was like, okay, this feels pretty good. Combos felt pretty good. There's some esoterics in there, and I love
Hmm.
those. So, I was like, okay, I'm gonna mess around and probably make this my official sub character. He's behind Ori in line for me right now,
Yeah.
but I definitely am looking forward to digging in and learning to play him a little bit.
Yeah, it is gonna be hard for me to. Dude, I think they buffed Wagner in a way that just like I said, Wagner enables my playstyle, and I think the changes they made to her just enable it like
Even
even
more.
more. Like I'm a J236 enthusiast. I'm a dive kick enthusiast with Wagner, and now that it's like CS cancelable on whiff and all sorts of stuff, um, her walk speed getting the buff, I think she's. Uh, I think she's in a good spot as long as they don't. If they leave her kind of the way she was in that beta, like I haven't had that much fun in a fighting game in a long time. That character just like I got to press the buttons I wanted when I wanted to press them, and somehow stuff worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kuon, I feel like I know Misoma has his eye on Kuon, and I feel like if Misoma has his eye on a character, that like it's gonna be stinky. Yeah.
Well. He usually picks pretty well. Yeah, when we were like, oh, Masoma has his eye on this, and we saw a little bit in that trailer, it's like, oh, this is Masoma quoted, 100%.
Yeah.
So, you dug into it just a little bit, but that leads us into our next question. What would you say is your mode of player expression? What's like your signature thing?
Oh man, unfortunately I feel like my signature is are like stand teching and not really Rago VOs, although I feel like for a while that was the online signature. I would honestly say just neutral skips. I think my biggest asset just in general is my reaction time. I think like I know I have a really solid reaction time, and so when I hone in and I like play good sets, especially offline, like I've real trouble doing this online for whatever reason. I can't focus the same way, but offline I can sit and it's just like really aggressive, just definitely abuse the neutral skips and just Trip would probably call out my 5Bs. I love just mashing that button, but honestly, like I spend more time organizing than I do actually playing, so it's kind of hard to say like what like my biggest signature is. I guess the biggest thing would be the dive kicks and just generally just trying to neutral skip.
Yeah, no, I think that's a way of playing, especially, you know, if Wagner is going to stay the way that she was in the beta, that's going to be really viable.
Yeah.
One of the things that we kind of joke about as higher level players is that Uni is actually like a jumping game. Like people kind of say, oh, it's anime Street Fighter, you know, you have these big normals and footsies and blah blah blah. It's like, no, like when you look at really strong characters, they have the ability to jump, they have the ability to air to air. Like being able to jump and feeling empowered when you jump is a strong tool.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing you jumping and diving on people when you do get to take your hands on the stick a little bit.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Fendo optimals off of all of those. The one thing that like I can get myself to do is I can sit in the lab forever and I can just like grind combos. That doesn't bother me. I know some people that's like boring to tears, like I just want an easy combo, which is also kind of ironic because I was like I picked Wagner because her combos were easier. But the more I played and everything, the more I'm like, I just gotta learn the optimals. And I know Fendo has been a champion of dive kick for a while.
Oh yeah.
So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what he comes up with.
Honestly, you guys are going to be eating really good because again, there's Fendo.
Yeah.
Red is so excited about going into there, and so you'll get to see primo offensive play.
Oh yeah.
Fendo, I think, even fashions himself a little bit more as the neutral kind of playing with Punisher, where Red is like, I want to get in and I want to kill you. And then of course that's not to say Randy and Mario, you know, who I was able to speak to a little bit ago, they have their own ways of playing as well.
Yeah.
Like, Wagner players are eating really good. I mean, she's had a lot of success, I think, in basically every version of the game that she's been in. You know, opinions about the strength of the character aside, but if everyone's believing in that character and you have 4 very high level players, not to, you know, dissuade from Yokai and Atlas and many other strong players as well, it's going to be scary. Scary hours, as the kid liked to say.
I'm definitely going to be watching Knots for sure. I love the way Knots plays Wagner, especially. Like that's a player every time I watch him, I'm like, oh, that's kind of how I want to play. Red, I love watching, but I'm like, I can't do that, man. He's built different. Like
he's a protagonist.
I'm just like, I can't mimic that. I'll steal his routes, I'll steal some other stuff, but the way he can get like the most janky hit and somehow convert it into, at minimum, just like a knockdown into a good situation is just, it's so impressive to me. And I don't think, that's not from labbing. That's just purely from playing and just building phenomenal game sense.
Honestly, his game sense is so strong. The biggest thing that I noticed with him is he just believes. It just doesn't, there's no like hesitation in this doesn't work, or it takes a very, very long time to get him to the point where you can scare him off of something.
Yeah.
For the most part, you can't do it. And so you have to fight him head on. And he loves that. He's like the type of player that grows when he butts heads of that sense. But kind of still speaking from the player perspective, you know, you mentioned that you had started playing with your group. Is there a matchup or a character that you find yourself like maybe the most familiar with?
Yuzu.
And then on the Yuzu, actually.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think just sheer volume of games. I don't know. I found Yuzu I can find annoying, but I never really find scary, if that makes sense.
No,
like, yeah, at least in the current version of the game, it's like, okay, I'm gonna dash block, but I can dash block. Like that's fine. If I get caught, it's also like when I mess up and Yuzu catches me, I know that I messed up and I can identify the problem pretty quickly. Whereas some other characters that like I know conversely, I think the next question you're going to ask is like characters that make me the most nervous.
Yep.
Dude, Waldstein. I don't see that character anywhere. I have no idea what the hell's happening. I just get scooped and I just like, I want to block. I can't block. It's just the opposite. Like when Wald runs over me, I don't know why he ran over me. And that like, that's the only way to get me to tilt really is like, if I can't even start to piece together an answer, I just start tilting. I'm just like, I just start tilting. I just start trying stuff and I just die.
Yeah, because like his normals are pretty annoying to get around, and then if you're close enough, you got a 3-frame command grab that's just like, okay, well you can't OS, you can't shield this, and then he just jumps at you. He jumps at you and there's plus frames, and it just makes you really, really uncomfortable unless you've seen it enough times. Yeah,
but yeah, Yuzu I think by far is the character that scares me least, which is kind of funny because like I'll play Carp and he'll just like wash me. He'll run over me. I don't think I've ever seen a player that has like as many actions per minute as Carp. Like his hands are always moving on the stick when he's playing Yuzu. But yeah, overall in general, like I feel like she just like what I was saying before. She can be annoying but not intimidating.
That makes sense. So I will phrase this kind of as a player perspective, but I'll also ask you this kind of as a TO. So I don't know if you have a rival, but as far as gameplay, or maybe like from a TO perspective, do you think that you have a rival? And if so, why would you consider them to be your rival?
I think the closest person I would say as a rival, as a player, would probably be Faded Nick. A couple, like we started playing at the same time. We're both in New York City, close proximity. We both go to locals. And I feel like depending on which one of us has been grinding more, like in the last couple weeks, the sets can kind of go back and forth. But honestly, it's just like, I feel like we have a great time just playing, and he's one of the few people that I can sit down and I can do like 60 games with and just like not even feel the time. And we'll be like, oh crap, what time is it? Oh, we got to go home. Yeah, so I'd say that's like the closest thing to like a player rival. TO rival is interesting. I don't know if I really have like rivals, but I definitely have people that like I keep an eye on and I aspire to like emulate, if that makes sense. So like for the longest time it was Spooky. I think like, yeah, I think if you look at like the old NLBC Online overlays and you look at my current overlays, for instance, you'll see like mirroring in some of the objects and stuff like that, or like the overlays. Spooky was somebody I tried to emulate a ton. Still do. Like I'll stop by his streams and I'll see some of the stuff he does for 10-0, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I should try and like up my game to that respect. TNS as well, but for me that's more of like an organizational front. Like how do they manage 9 million brackets a week with like 200 people all the time?
It's high quality too.
Yeah, the quality never drops. But like more locally, like obviously LP, like Datagram, Monta, like I love both those guys. I try and help them out whenever I can. I unfortunately like find myself traveling a lot of weekends, either just to like visit home or work or something like that. So I don't always get to go out to LP, but I think they just run really clean, fun events, and I love just going and watching how they do it. If I can loan them consoles, I always will. But yeah, I guess I don't have like rivals in the sense. I kind of look at it as like, I definitely feel like sometimes people think that like the FGC is a zero-sum game and there's only like X number of players and they're only going to go to X number of locals. And I kind of don't really think that's the case. Yeah, I think it's much more productive just to kind of like, I think what makes New York such a strong place for fighting games is in general, the TOs tend to cooperate a lot. Like they'll schedule around each other. They'll, if they're going to be on the same day, maybe like one will drop a game that the other one's not dropping, stuff like that. They'll stagger start times so that it's like, okay, you're running Strive late in the afternoon. I'll run it in the morning. Some people will go to both. I think it's really just like, it behooves, especially like organizers and stuff, just to work together as much as possible. Not just to like, I don't want to say capitalize because it's not the right word. Not just to like draw in the people who are already in fighting games, but with like when each local's running at different venues, at different times, different days of the week, different cadences and stuff, you just naturally bring in new, different people. Like we run out of OS NYC for our monthly, but also where crossover is going to be. And that's such a great venue just to get people that walk by and are like, what is this? Oh, this is Street Fighter. I used to play Street Fighter when I was a kid. And you can pull those in and they'll be like, a lot of times they'll just be like, oh, are you doing anything? Like, are you going to be here next week? I'm like, no, but, and I can just list all the other locals that are going to be happening in the next week. And I think that's how you just kind of grow an overall larger scene in an area and get people to just come out. It's like a long-winded way to say, like, I don't really like have any TL rivals, but I definitely have like people I respect and I try and steal stuff from. Like you have Brett running Slashback, which just, I think like
that production's crazy.
Yeah, just nailed the production, nailed the aesthetics, like the cohesiveness of the aesthetics and everything. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, I gotta match that. You know what I mean? Like I gotta lift myself up and just kind of like steal inspiration from there.
So there are two things that I want to dig into, and I'm glad that you mentioned these things the way that you did. One of them is one of the ways that I kind of feel about my quote-unquote rivals, both from an organization standpoint and maybe as a competitor, is that some of them are players that I would like to defeat in a tournament setting. You know, there maybe some objectives that I would like to have, but more than anything, I see them as peers. These are people that I respect. These are people that I love watching. These are people that I feel like challenge me and challenge my thinking. And I think that you are looking at this maybe in the same way as well. It's just like, okay, I see what this person is doing over here. Spooky was a big inspiration for me. How can I do this? How can I tailor this to my audience? How can I maybe collaborate a couple things that I noticed other people like about this and add it to what we're doing over here? the second thing that I wanted to mention is kind of like what we talked about before, which is matching people with people. And
Hmm.
so, if you might not be able to serve the audience that might want to come in on a week that you aren't there, getting them to someone else who is going to be organizing, is going to be running, allows you to still match people with people. And I think for the most part, people remember that. People are like, oh, I talked to this person and this person got me in. That person got
Hmm.
me in. I mean, we talked about this with Triplicate. It's like Trip
Yeah.
hopped in and like that changed the entire trajectory for you.
Yeah.
Maiko sat down with me at CL Taku 2015 or 2016, and that's the reason that I'm here. That's like a huge reason why I'm here. You know,
Hmm.
going out to New York and hanging with LP, because one of my things is before I got sponsored, I was actually selected and I got flown out to an LP.
Awesome.
That happened to be an event that Psychotic, when he was still on the East Coast, happened to be at. And Takashi, who I'm still close with to this day, I actually stayed at his family's place when I went to Tokyo last year, or this year. Not, oh no, it is last year
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that allowed me to meet so many different people that have, changed my life basically. And
Hmm.
so I think it's so important to know that like it's not a zero sum game. Even if you aren't necessarily the direct beneficiary of matching someone with someone or seeing someone who's interested in pointing them in a different direction, uh, it's still a net positive for the scene. So
Hmm.
I always tell people too, like if someone wants to ask me a question about Undernight, I don't need to take the credit for getting them in or whatever. Like I've had plenty of people that are like, I've wanted to play Undernight and I wanted to get in, but like I don't really see any online tournaments. One of the first places I point them to, it's to WASD. It's like, look, this guy's been killing it for the last 3 years. There's a burgeoning scene. Like I'll tell them about WASD Lives and tell them about my enjoyable time at Crossover Arc. Like that is important to people. People are like,
Hmm.
okay, well, this person had nothing but glowing things to say about this person or this event. Let me try to do that. And if that colors them, then they talk to another person, and you really get to kind of keep the chain going. And I always appreciate
Yeah.
that. All right. So going back to the player perspective, you talked about you being in a pretty unique position as a tournament organizer to watch a lot of different players come into their own. The question that I want to ask is, who do you currently have your eye on right now who you think is set to make a big jump in Under Night 2 coming up? Who do you think is like maybe next up? Who are some players on the radar?
Oh, I think the first one that comes to mind immediately is Mr. B.
Hmm.
Um, I've been seeing him play a lot. I've been seeing him improve steadily. And I don't know. I feel like he's one to two things clicking away from just like all of a sudden just kind of exploding. People are like, wait, who is this dude? Who is this guy? Yeah, really solid Aurier player, comes from like a Smash background, and I feel like everybody I know that started with Smash somehow just ends up being OD at like 2D fighting games.
Myself included.
Um, yeah, they just have like such a good awareness of spacing and just like neutral in general, and I think that goes a long way, especially like playing a character like Aurier where you got those massive pokes and you can just kind of really just snipe people. So I think Mr. B, um, Gravy Jones, I wish played more. I think if Gravy played a little bit more, he would clean house. I phenomenal plus R player. Does really well whenever he enters uni, much to his surprise, because he doesn't really spend that much time playing it other than like kind of late nights in Discord every once in a while.
Hmm.
But I'm hoping with Uni 2, with the rollback and everything, he'll be on it more. I think if he does, I think Merkava's already a stinky character, and
Oh
in his hands, it'll be like it'll just be infuriating to a lot of players that match up with him. They're like, "What? Why is this plus R player cooking? I don't understand."
No, with Gravy, is Gravy New York?
No, so Gravy, that's the other thing. He lives in Wyoming, so there's like no local scene.
Yeah, he's out west, far out west.
Yeah. Really just, I think the closest thing to him, he was saying, is like 4 or 5 hours away, like as a drive. And I think it's not, is it Utah, maybe?
Yeah, Utah. Maybe he could go to something in Colorado. Maybe like or something out there. But that, Wyoming
it's a
is
trek
certainly out there.
Yeah, so like it's really hard without rollback for him to just get like decent games. And so when Plus R came out, it had that really, really nice rollback. He just went all in, never looked back. And I think those are the two most recent that I'm like excited watching, really. And Twang. I gotta mention Twang. I think Twang has improved so much. And I feel like a lot of people don't even, I think you realize it because you keep tabs on people in general, but definitely the Akatsuki players. But I feel like a lot of people like kind of look over Twang when they're talking about like solid uni players, and I think that's a mistake. I think he's gotten really good, and it's steady improvement, and that is what I think makes it all the more scary. Because when you see somebody, like sometimes you see people that shoot up overnight, but a lot of times those players can disappear just as quickly if like a patch comes out and it murks like one thing that like really enabled. Yeah, exactly. But when you see somebody who's steadily, slow and steady, just gets better and better and better, I feel like they never really fall off. They just continue to slowly get better and better and better. And I think Twang is going to be he's going to be a bracket demon for sure for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I think he already is. I mean, like Twang went down to PR, won that event. He's had a lot of success in the last year as well too. You know, like as someone who's played Twang a lot and seen kind of the styles that he's come to adapt, and really like the style that he's starting to make his own. Mm-hmm. He's like a player. He and Mocha are both players that I'm really interested to see. You know.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people already know about Salty. They know about me. They know about Squish and but like, I don't even want to call them an underbelly. There are so many strong Akatsuki players, Twang included. Conjure, I think, is quite strong too. Who are just really waiting to get that sort of exposure. And Uni 2 might just be that arena.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially interesting too because like New York is such a hotbed. You have so many strong players coming out. I mean, Low just won the last Lunar Phase over Twang.
Yeah.
You have Stranger who's in New Jersey, Brandon who's in New Jersey, Infinity, and like that area is such a hotbed. Even for Mr. B, like I'm especially interested for him because he's smack dab in the middle of Boston.
That's true, yeah.
2GIG is there, Pinku is now there, Redblade is there. Like, that's a lot of talent in one area. So he's going to have to be, sharpening his iron, fire, sharpening him.
You do well in that local. Yeah, if he does well in that local, like, God help anybody that runs into him in, like, pools at whatever major he goes to.
Yeah, I mean, that same area is Fox of. I don't think Neon, formerly Venice, is too much interested from a tournament standpoint, but Neon's certainly going to be playing online quite a bit. Well, Isaac is no longer in that area, but that area has been a hotbed for a long time too, so I'm super excited to see where they're going to go as well. So, I think you mentioned player inspirations before, so I think Knots was one of them. Do you have any other player inspirations?
Knots, Fendo, for sure. Fendo. Like, flips and everything aside, I think he's just, like, an upstanding person. Really easy to talk to.
Absolutely.
Always answers my questions to the best of his ability. Never kind of like, it can be kind of hard, especially less so now because I feel like I know the majority of everybody in the community at this point, or at least like the people that like show up to all the majors and everything. But like early on, it can be like intimidating to approach somebody that you're like, oh, they're really good, and he's got a lot of Twitter followers and all this other stuff. But I mean, Fendo is always really easy to talk to, and just gives really solid advice. And I think plays in a way that really makes Wagner look fun. Mm-hmm. And so definitely like those two for Wagner. But I think for like overall Uni, just in the community, I got to go back to kind of three people that I said I liked watching improve, but just the way they play Uni and think about it overall is just like really interesting to me. And that'd be like OmniDig, Defiant, and Big Black. Yep. I think Omni is one of the cleanest fighting game players across games that I can think of. Has a very, very good sense of risk reward, doesn't really overextend. And it's very educational watching him play. So I definitely like admire anytime I like, it doesn't matter what game he's playing, like I can watch and I can tell that he's like actively thinking and just like thinking about the matchup, where to press, where not to press. Big Black, I think, could be one of the most solid players I've ever seen in any fighting game. It's actually wild how good his reactions are, how quick his decision making is. I don't know if you watched that long set he did with Redblade in Uni 2, like in the beta. Yep. That set was crazy to me. I felt like I was just watching like two people kind of like at the pinnacle of the game, which is weird to say because it was like an online beta, but like just of the series overall, just kind of going at it and how quick he can make decisions, how rock solid his defense is. Like,
yeah, it's hard
he
to
is. Yeah, go ahead.
I said it's hard to open him up.
Mm-hmm. And he's just so patient, right? I think that's really impressive. And then Defy's just complete knowledge and willingness to commit to and learn new characters. Like, especially when you're known for a character, right? And you're joining a bracket on a character you're trying to learn. A lot of times chat goes off like, oh, you're throwing, you're this, you're that, like go back to the other character, go back. And Defy just doesn't care. Defy's like, look, if I lose, I lose, but I'm gonna learn this character. Like today is Hilda day and I'm going to learn Hilda. It doesn't matter if I go 0-2, it doesn't matter if I win the bracket, like regardless, I'm gonna do it on Hilda. And I really just respect that kind of that dedication and the composure to just kind of write off what everybody else is saying and just play how you and play in a way that long term is going to give you the best results.
So along that note as well, I think we maybe talked about a couple of them, but do you have community members that you kind of respect and look up to?
Oh yeah, I mean there's definitely the people that help me out regularly but have been in the scene like longer than I have. Like Ryer immediately comes to mind. He played Marvel for like over a decade and stuff, came in and has helped me out immeasurably. Like props to him. Koyo helps me out a ton. Gravy helps, Jen. But just kind of like OG players that I respect and look up to. I think Rurik is the first person that comes to mind for me. What just such a stand-up, welcoming individual who's also extraordinarily knowledgeable, not just about the game, but on the process of learning and how to learn, and is very willing to share that knowledge with pretty much anyone that asks. Those would be like my quick and dirty shout outs. I know if I like sit and I go through the list, there's a ton of people. I think Omega Lid is, I really respect the content grind he's on right now and how he's really, really trying. Yeah. And I know a lot of people got really mad at Nihongo Gamer when he's like, we got this new trailer and no one in Uni is going to make any content about it. But I think a lot of people got mad. We saw a quick flash in the pan, but Lid is one of the people that like did that and then just kept running with it and is constantly just putting out content, putting out content, putting out content. And it's just getting better and better. And I respect that. I think he's a very solid player. He's getting great at commentary, and I really respect that he's trying to grow the scene through content, which is a lens I feel like it's content creation kind of sucks. Like I've tried it. It's hard. It is work. And I feel like everyone thinks it's easy until they try it, and then they try it and they never want to do it again.
Oh,
so, yeah.
So it's interesting that you bring that up. As someone who also makes content that we are making right now, even, it does suck. Like, I'm happy to create the product, but like everything else that surrounds the creation of the content feels really bad. And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, we've seen people come and go. The older generation in specifics, I think, is like pretty anti-content in the sense that like the surrounding like culture, the burnout, and everything like that, they're not interested in that. They'd rather just play the game. I think Magnets was a person for sure. Maybe his content grind was a little bit before you came into the scene, but like he was really, really popular. He was like one of the primary streamers and everything for the game, and I think it really just kind of had him engaging with the game and with the community in a way that he wasn't as happy with. Now, I don't think that inherently means that content is bad. I think Nihongo Gamer had a really good point. He and I actually talked at EVO Japan. I think it was him, Suika, me, Norse, Isaac. We ended up talking about content and kind of where Undernight's community is as far as like their aversion to making content, because like the community aspect is so powerful for us. One of the ways that we could show content off is to show just how cool everybody is, how welcoming the community is, how interested we are in teaching everyone. But if we kind of cut that off because we don't want to make that content, then maybe we're working against our own potential interests. There's some discussion and discourse to be had with that, but I think the underlining feeling of that from Nihongo Gamer, I can't be mad at. You know, it's part of the reasons why I make content. It's why I'm doing this, to really, again, point people with people. I'd like more people to get to know you. You have a fan base that, or like I guess I could say fan base. You have like a group of people that you touch that's maybe a little different than mine. Maybe they don't, the people that look at my content or talk to me maybe don't know as much about you. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring you in and talk to you today. So I think that sort of thing is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it can be a thankless grind. So when I see somebody doing it and potentially reaching like just, there is a discourse to be had, but I feel like in this current like ecosystem, the way you really, really get new blood to try your game, especially if the online is good, is content. That's how you just get people. They're like, I'll buy this, I'll try it out. It might not be how you keep them there, but it is a very good way to get people interested to try.
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, this was how we got people to try ST in the first place. You know, everything went viral. People saw cool things, and then hashtag, play Undernight or play Unist. People saw people collecting, and they started thinking like, well, why don't I try this? So it's really like a different way of accomplishing some of the things that we've already accomplished to bring more people into the community. So, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that at all. All right, so we're coming toward the last couple questions of the interview here. We'll go back to kind of discussing the game in general. Uniclear is really about 5 days, reasonably speaking, from a lot of people away from being sunset, about 10 or 11 otherwise. Do you have any reflections about Uniclear, maybe some thoughts or maybe even some hot takes about this version of the game?
Oh, that's kind of rough because I didn't spend that much time with like the previous versions.
Mm.
Um, I'm trying to think. I guess my hottest take would be like, I don't think the netcode was as bad as everybody said it was. It definitely wasn't great, but if you got a solid like, you could get good games, especially like I'm not saying you're hopping on ranked and be guaranteed good games, but I mean I played on a hotspot in Egypt and I got like all right games. So I guess my hot take like on the game was that the netcode was not that bad, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it and it just kind of it scratches an itch that no other fighting game has ever managed to scratch for me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I really appreciate it overall. It's hard for me to have just kind of like really closing thoughts about Clear because as I was saying is I didn't really play like Uniel, I didn't really play ST that much. I bought ST, hopped on that one time, and then I was like I can't do this. Let me go back to Dragon Ball, and then just kind of came on with Clear. But I guess like the closing thoughts I would say is it just be like kind of looking forward and just encourage people to have an open mind for Uni 2 and the changes that are coming with that version of the game. I know just from talking with people that a lot of people were unhappy with the changes from ST to Clear. Um, they didn't really like the patch. They just were not huge fans. And I just kind of encourage people to spend time with the new version of the game, especially like if you really loved Clear and they're like making massive changes to your character. Just take a deep breath, spend time with the game, play it before you make your opinion. Don't just read patch notes. Don't look at XYZ players tweet and immediately be like, yeah, this is the take I'm going to take. Take a minute, spend some time with the game, come to your own conclusion. If you like it, phenomenal. There's going to be a million events for Uni, for sure. If you don't, that's great, but I encourage you to actually like spend time with the new version of the game and not just look back at the older iterations and kind of harp on this is the way it was and this is the way it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think seeing the next game as what the next game is probably the way that you're going to find it enjoyable the most.
Mhm.
You know, so I think ST to Clear certainly had that sort of opinion. I've been on record to say that like I think Clear is significantly better than ST, but I have talked to people who felt the opposite for various reasons. And
Mhm.
I hope that they're able to take in Uni 2 with a clear perspective as well. With that said, what are you most looking forward to in Uni 2?
Oh man. Aside from the netcode, which is like the obvious one, I think the thing I'm most excited about is the steady stream of like DLC support that's already like announced. Um, for better or for worse, I think in today's fighting game landscape, people associate regular DLC with developer support. So like even if a developer is putting out patches, they're making tweaks, if they're not putting out new characters, people tend to look at the game and just be like the developers have written it off.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Uni is coming in and they already have a release schedule for characters, they already have announced like how many characters are coming, things like that for the season. I'm very excited for that because I think it guarantees that at least like the first year of Uni 2 is going to be pretty strong. Like we're seeing it with Granblue, right? Like I think Granblue did it phenomenally as well. Like here's the DLC characters, here's when they're coming out, and you're going to see those consistent bumps. And the fact that French Bread is coming in hot with Uni, not only with like what I think looks to be a very strong starting package, but have publicly like announced that they intend to continually tweak that package, add updates. Just bodes very well for the longevity of the game. Yeah, I think that's definitely the thing I'm most excited about. I mean, that and like I think a lot of the changes just enable my character in a way that's a lot of fun. But just an overall picture, that would be it.
Yeah, one of the things that I did appreciate, and maybe this was also before you kind of dug in too much, was uh, the release schedule path mirrors a lot of what they did with Melty Blood type Lumina. So
Hmm.
like we knew that DLC work was coming. They released they gave us a steady drip of information leading up to the release of the game.
Yeah.
Um, they even did it one better with kind of announcing a beta. Like I didn't think that we were going to get it. I thought the game was just going to come out. That was like completely new. French Bread had never done that before. Um, they really just seem like they're doing everything right. We kind of talked about Plus R in that package when discussing Gravy
Yeah.
Jones, but like honestly, like the Plus R package is a lot of I think what we are getting now. We have a big casual lobby where you can just find people. You don't,
Mm.
you have a ranked lobby, you have a casual kind of lobby, rollback netcode, save states, replay takeover, like all of that stuff I think is very similar to the kind of package that Plus R players are able to appreciate, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I've been personally a big sucker for the one-player content too. Like I played through all the
Yeah.
Rush in Lumina. I'm interested to see what sort of 1P package that we're going to get for Under Night 2, considering lore and story and all of that sort of stuff too. So yeah, it's just a couple days away.
I know.
It doesn't feel real. Like it's so close, so close.
It's so close. It's yeah, I don't know. It hasn't hit me that it's like coming out on Sunday like that. Like I know it is, but it's
It doesn't feel
wild.
like it.
Yeah, like it it still feels like a pipe dream, but I'm here for it for sure.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you for coming and speaking with me. I know that you're a very busy man. I'm surprised that I got an hour out of you real quick. Could you give us some places to follow you at? Maybe some final shout outs if you have those to give as well.
Yeah, so I guess the two places to find me, first and foremost, would be on, I guess, three places: Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm ImpurestClub on all three. Thanks to simulcasting, all of my tournaments end up on the YouTube channel immediately after they're done. So if you're looking to watch any of those or to enter, definitely follow on Twitter, follow on Twitch, or just check out the YouTube to look at those. Final shout outs. I mean, obviously got to shout you out, but they're probably already watching your YouTube if they've gotten this far. I really do want to shout out Ryer. He helps a ton, puts a lot of work into his own streaming and everything, but does a ton of behind the scenes work with logistics and everything that I feel like people are just not aware of. His Twitter is Ryer on stream, and his Twitch is, I want to make sure I get it correct, it's Ryer VT. So yeah, definitely follow him, like subscribe to that, and I also want to shout out Boston Bluebeat, who I know is planning to do a ton of uni stuff when it drops.
I know that they recently announced, I think, their online tournament is supposed to be Wednesday at 7. Unfortunately, slightly coinciding with ranked night, but there's nothing wrong with that. If you want a tournament portion, Boston Bluebeat has you covered. If you just want to play casuals and ranked, then you have multiple avenues that you can kind of channel into.
Yeah, they're, I think, launching an online tournament series with like over $3,000 in prizing for uni, which is sick.
I think they
Go
have
ahead.
a system in place that I think if you place high enough or something like that, they'll actually fly you out to the beach episode.
Yeah.
That will be this year as well. I did see
Yep.
that tweet.
But yeah, those are the last of my shout outs, I think.
Oh, hold on.
Oh wait, crossover arc.
There
Oh my
we go,
god,
yeah.
I was thinking of people and not events.
Oh, yeah.
If you're in the tri-state area, even if you're not, come out. Crossover arc is a yearly regional we run with Lunar Phase. We run tons of French bread games. This year we've got both Melties, Uni 2, Grand Blue Fantasy Rising, and Strive as like our main games. We're putting $1,000 into the pot to start for all of those games. We have side brackets for Plus R, Exerd, and KOF 15. And I know there's been talk of either Blaze Blue or a mystery bracket as well on the side. It's just a good time. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, if you can make it, just come out. It's my favorite thing to run every year by far. Yeah,
it's a much beloved event. I unfortunately won't be able to make it this year. I came out, was it 2022? I want to say. I had a blast there. I love the OS venue. I've been there for locals. I've been there for crossover arc. If you're in the area, please make sure you come out. I know Slashback on the West Coast, I think, is the same weekend. So you got something East Coast and West Coast.
It's the next weekend.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, they have their weekend is the same one as the Atlanta event. But yeah, absolutely. If you're on the East Coast or even close to the East Coast, go out to this event. It'll be one of the most enjoyable times that you have playing. So again, thank you, Imp. I appreciate you taking the time to
Thank you
today, and we will see you soon. Remember, register for Crossover Arc, and I hope to see you there.
Yeah.